All right. Hey all, and welcome to Monday Night Inking. I have returned yet again. There's no one in the feed yet. Oh, nope, there's Wheeler. Not to be outdone. Here he is, number one. So for the future viewers, I am working on these dragons today. This is a set of character designs. Or rather, a character design I was commissioned to do. Good intro comment. Good job. A commission I was commissioned to do, and I really crammed to get it done in time for you all tonight because I did not want to have to do a third week of moles, requiring you all to do mole puns. So there's only that much left of her anyway, so that might not have been a long one. So I did my best to get you all something interesting for this week. So I'm working just on these face scales. Gonna try to really bore down into the detail on this one for this stream. Wheeler says, I missed last week, so I have to make up for it. I'm glad you found a way. So as you might be able to see here, and maybe the resolution's not great, I already made kind of a mess in the eye there. I'm trying to clean that out with a Posca. I will be breaking out the Posca a little bit later, but I always forget with this tool, it smears if it's not completely dry yet. So I need to be more careful with my timing there. Wheeler says, don't you have a door prize for the first one that shows up? Yeah, you get to have the satisfaction of being the first one that showed up. I think that should be its own reward. Hold on, gotta scroll for a second here. You think hand-picked apples from a farm would be a better prize? Maybe someday. To be honest, though, I've already eaten most of those. I ate a bunch of them in the car just on the way home. So let me try that sentence again. There are certain things you draw that always sort of give you flashbacks to like when you first learned how to draw them, or, you know, memorable moments when you were drawing something similar. And right now I'm getting hardcore flashbacks to when I first learned how to draw these sort of large volumetric scales on a reptile, because in Shadowplay, the last issue of which came out on Wednesday, there is a large, if you've read, I think, issue either 4 or 5, there is a very large draft lizard, basically a lizard that pulls a cart. And I basically designed it after a bearded dragon, and they have a lot of these big scales around their mouths that are very sort of volumetric like this. So I'm flashing back to having learned how to do that. Not that it's particularly complicated, as you can see. You just put a shadow line to imply the form. All right, we get the little head ridge. Well, here, let me bulk this up a little bit. There we go. What's the best angle to do this at? Getting completely distracted. Wheeler's asking, dragons based off anything, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, etc. So this is a character design commission. So to be quite literal, it is based off the description the client sent me. A little sloppy, but you can't really tell. Rainbow Monochrome sends a heart face. Thank you. There we go. It's coming along kind of cool. So there's this sort of nested point between the horns that I got to create a little indent there. That seems to be working. Sun is above its head. Yes. So we've got an overhead light source, essentially. We do have some naturally occurring blacks, like on top of the horns here. I'm going to say that's an actual spot of black. But for the most part, what you're seeing is shadow. Okay. Should I do some rendering out? That does create a lot of nice texture. All right, well, let me finish these scales and then worry about that later. Actually, let me fix that one. Gotta get all the black off of there. All right, the magic of Posca marker. Put that right on there. Actually, I can probably put a little more on the eye problem now. Build that up. There we go. All right. Gotta not touch that while it's drying. You know what? I could take these down and around. Constartisan says, hello, I have a question. Excuse me if it's dumb. No dumb questions. Blue lines, are they printed or do you draw them with a special pencil or something? So these blue lines in particular are printed, but you can also just draw them with a non-photo blue or Color-Ace pencil. What I do is I scan my pencils into Photoshop and convert them to blue line and then print them out on inking board. But you can just as easily well, not just as easily, but you can just draw with blue pencil if that is what suits your style. So I hope that answers your question. What kind of black pen you use? So this is a, oh gosh, I'm blanking. This is a Zebra Feud double-headed brush pen, I believe. It has the fiber end and then just like the more typical felt end, which honestly on this one I never use because I have plenty of others like that. But it's very similar to brush. I've been very much enjoying it. And it's definitely not the only thing I use at all, not by a long shot, but it definitely performs a lot of functions in my work right now. Probably be better going this way. Constartisan says, I see, thanks a lot. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. It's always difficult to explain things in a quick, succinct way that makes sense. But you're always welcome to message me afterwards if you have a question I missed or wasn't able to answer. I'm happy to answer questions. All right. Get these brow ridge scales here. There's that. Wheeler says, I do that, and she responds, LOL. So, like, you're your own standard of the shocker that is. Okay. Now we're up to 8. That's about as high as we usually get at one time. The reposts have many more views, fortunately, but live you never get many views. Wheeler says, I'm backing you up. Some people never respond that do live feeds. I know, dude. I appreciate it. Okay. So Nibdean says, hey, noob question. Don't worry about it, dude. Are you inking over a scanned printout of the original sketch you did? Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. In fact, let me get... It's always useful to have a visual aid. Dig out of my printer here the pencils. So these are the pencils. This is basically the same area. And what I do when I'm done with the pencils is I scan them in and I convert them to blue line in Photoshop and then print them out on inking board, which is nice for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is that you, well, by you I mean me, want to pencil on something on a different type of paper than you want to ink on. Go. So let's see, where am I going from here? Constartisan says, do you have a YouTube channel to which I can subscribe to? I do have a YouTube channel, but there's not a ton on it. It's mostly just the downloaded videos from these live streams. I do have a couple other tutorials on there. Like, it's not like, you know, YouTube star fancy or anything. I just put things on there when I know that they're maybe more easily accessible than they are on Instagram digging through IGTV. But yeah, I have a bunch of time lapses and little things on there, and it's just my name, Clara Meath. You are more than welcome to go take a peek at it, but don't be too disappointed. Really nothing you wouldn't have already seen on here. In your opinion, what's the best ink pen? Oh gosh, like, they all do so many different things. The zebra pens are good. I really like this one because I like the hair, but the zebra pens are good. You know what? Here's a start. Here's a good place to start. Go to Jake Parker's website and look at his tools. He lists a really good variety of tools, and they're good quality tools. I have actually, that's where I found this. There's a number of tools I use that I discovered specifically looking at his website. So I would recommend that. Take a peek over there. Wonderful artist with some wonderful work and a broad selection of tools. That would be a good place to start. Let's bulk that up. A little more. Go. You forgot about the awesome video on YouTube, I assume, on there about the Cogher Worm book and the Vincent Price plug. Yeah, because Vincent Price needs to be plugged. Yeah, I believe my the video of my Kickstarter is still up there from oh so long ago when I had so very much hair compared to what I have now anyway. Let's see, maybe a little rendering on this side. A little bit more of this. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so these guys are going to cast enough of a shadow that I should fill in here a little bit. So this is the mouth, could bulk that up. Bulk these up a little bit. Now, since this is design, I may want to come back around and pop out this whole shape with the white marker. I'm not sure. I am not sure. You know what? You can't go wrong because then you could just fill it back in. So I'm going to give that a shot and show you all how that would work. Okay, you know what? But first I'm going to do the rendering on these, the horns here. Create a gray. That. Hey, Empire Comics. How you doing? All right, I may want to, I just don't know about haloing that right now. I just don't know. Let me put some shadows in under these spines and think about it. Hello, Bowie. Thanks for stopping in. All right, gonna render these a little bit more just for texture. Dragons are old, right? They last a long time. They get all textural. All right, I'm going to go ahead and try haloing here with the Posca and see how it goes. And if it's not successful, you can just build back over it. This is another thing you will find on Jake Parker's website that I was recommending earlier. It's a wonderful opaque drawing tool for popping white into your pieces, which can be very hard to do depending on what ink you're using. A lot of inks sort of suck up white ink, so it can be difficult to get an opaque white. But these work quite well compared to the rest. So we will let that sit. I'm going to let it end here. We can end there because those are really popped out from the form, but these are less vital to separate like that. So I'm going to leave those as they are. What does haloing mean? Well, I mean, you know what a halo is. You know, it's to create a shape around the outside of something. And depending on how you use it, it can help pop an object forward or preserve the line weight. So for example, like the line weight of the containment line is very important. You want a good heavy line weight on the most outside of any figure. Like I'm definitely going to bump up the line weight up here, but you can see down here it's very strong, and that helps it sort of contain the figure and makes it have weight and presence. But if you're going to put something with a heavy line weight over something that's solid black, you're going to lose the power of that line weight. And depending on your style, you'll use halos more or less. I haven't really used them until recently, so they're sort of a new experiment for me, and I'm liking how they're working. Definitely don't throw them around willy-nilly, but for the most part, they can be, well, I mean, really like any tool. Don't abuse it, but it can be a very useful tool. I'm going to put some nicks and swipes on there. Wheeler says, learned something new. Heard similar stuff with my tattoos and portraits. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a universal art principle. It just depends on how you use it. But I'm going to let this area drop into black because it is much less important than this area, which is sort of more lifted off the body, if that makes sense. All right, so I think I need to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add these, swipe around those rims and get it a nice highlight on there. Hang on. Add these in to make sure we understand which way these scales are folding, or turning rather. Get those neck shapes in there. Nibdeen says, closest I got to this was 20 years ago as a contract colorist in comics. Oh, dude. But I never with the scanned inks. Do you work to a large scale than the final canvas? You never saw scanned inks. Do you work to a larger scale than the final canvas print to increase the DPI of the final print? Absolutely. Always work, if you can, larger than the final print size. Some people work at the final print size, which is also fine depending on their style, but you definitely can't work smaller than the final print size. That's basically it. Oh, I just got an email, an important email that distracted me. That's fine. I can stick with you guys for a bit. But yeah, Nib, if you were working 20 years ago, I really have no idea what the protocols would have been then. That would have been very different. I had professors in school who remembered like mailing in physical pages. Okay, I think I'm reconnected here. Well, this is looking pretty good. I'm gonna bump this one up. I was a bit slipshod in rushing through this to get it the pencils done, so I'm gonna be nice and languorous in the inks to make sure it is as good as it deserves to be. Nibdean says, cool, really appreciate it. I gotta do illustrations for a brand, so I gotta draw. Okay, go for it, dude. Don't we all? All right, let me bulk this up. Also about line weight, it essentially follows the same rules as shadow. So you're going to want to make it lighter on the side towards the light and heavier on the side towards the dark, or away from the light rather. So you see again, obviously down here, that's about as heavy as that's going to get. And also so is this, because we have obviously an overhead light based on the shadow we're looking at. So the underside is going to get much heavier. So while I am bulking up the top of this horn, the underside is going to be even bulkier than that. Oh, I'm way out of frame, sorry. I think my stand is tilting. Try to do this. This stand is slowly dying. It's losing its elasticity. Okay, so the underside is heavier. This gets fairly far away. And also it does, line weight serves atmospheric perspective. So the reason this is the heaviest part is because it is A, around the outside, B, furthest away from the light, so in shadow zone basically, and C, closest to us as the viewer. Since it's angled, the head is angled slightly toward us, it's not proper profile, that's going to be the strongest line, whereas these containment lines, even though they are technically still containment lines, are going to be the lightest version of a containment line, if that makes sense. You wouldn't want them to be as heavy because that would be claiming that they were the same distance from the viewer. It's all smoke and mirrors, folks. That, let's let that be some shadow there because that sort of flares out. This one can start heavier because it's closer. A little more on top there. So Nib says, I worked for a company in Dublin that had the contract for Marvel and DC. They trained us as colorists in Photoshop 3. Aww. Cutting edge stuff back then. This is great to watch. Well, thank you. Yeah, when I color, I use Photoshop as well. It's a little further along than 3 now, but yeah, Photoshop was, in its inception, rocked the world. Rocked the world. I'm good at sentences. A little sloppy there, but I can pare that back down. There we go. So you see how much more like heft and presence it has when you bump up that containment line? It just makes it strong and real. I love containment lines. Let's see, what else can I do on this one? So I want some, this needs to be heavier as well. Wheeler says, I was thinking more real for the buffed containment lines. All right, I'm gonna start putting some nicks and textures on there. Horns definitely, I'm sure, take a beating after many hundreds of years. Probably going to use some spatter on here as well. Put a little more texture in these slices here. This is the fun part. This is when I get to start going back and juicing everything up with textures and tones. Let's see. All right, need to beef this up a little bit, but we still have a decent halo. And if we have to beef the halo up, we definitely can. Is the iris and pupil completed? Guess I never really pay attention to the eyes of a dragon. If you're close enough to see the eye, dude, I feel like you should probably be paying attention to something else. Yeah, I think they are. I actually had some rendering in here that I lost. Let me fix that back in. I think it's that animal situation where you don't necessarily put a lot of information in the eye. There we go. That looks a little better. So you can see his little peepers there. For scale, you want to keep the eyes fairly small. If you want something to read as large, one thing you don't do is give it huge eyes, because that biologically is going to read as something that's small. You know, like small animals and baby animals and stuff like that have large eyes. If you think of like a bear, they have the very small little sort of pig eyes. You think of like, you know, a giant in fantasy or D&D, whatever, you give them small eyes, and that's going to help with the scale to help make them, you know, make them feel big. All right, so we got texture around the edge there. More texture in here. Oh, I was going to pop highlights in there. That's right. Okay, hold on. Wait, I got to finish the containment line over here. Got distracted. A scale, pun intended. Yeah, you wouldn't be here in the live stream if puns weren't happening. You missed it earlier, but I was saying how I rushed to get these dragons penciled so that I could ink them tonight on the stream so that I wouldn't have to subject you guys to a third week of mole puns. Figured you'd probably run out by now. Okay. Let me drop a little rendering from here, because that's going to technically be casting shadow. And I should probably bulk up this value here. Keep it textural though. Okay. Yeah, we don't want to dig a hole with the puns. My gosh, it's so easy to set you off. There wasn't much left on the moles anyway. There's just like the lady mole's pants area. Let me bulk up the mouth line a little bit. Okay. These could be heavier because they are going to be casting some of their own shadow. They don't have a lot of dimension, but they still have some. Okay. Actually, same thing with these. Just sort of show a little bit of shadow of those standing up. They're not completely flat to the skin. Similar thing with these guys. There's going to be shadow areas where they curve in, but the light hasn't reached yet. Okay. So Nib says, when you sketch, do you place reference point on the page to indicate where the light source comes from, or you just judge it by eye? Yeah, I mean, I just judge it by eye. If it's very important, like if it's a, an interior page in a comic and it's very important that we know where the light is coming from, that's like part of the story, then I may do that. But for the most part, it's not like super important. Shadows in particular, you lie about a lot in comics, just like whatever looks good. This still needs to be heavier. Okay. Okay. What was I gonna do? What was I gonna do, guys? What was it I was waiting for? I need to bulk these up. I was gonna spatter, but I wasn't... Was that it? What did I say? All right. I will do some controlled spatter. So usually, well, not usually, often when I do spatter, it's toothbrush spatter, which is a sort of a very wide sort of shotgun blast spread. It just gets it everywhere. If you want very controlled spatter, you're gonna want to use nib. And you hear the sounds of me making a mess over here as I get that ready. Let's see. Got my 2 nibs here. Let's see, I'm gonna do this. Hopefully this isn't a... There we go. Let's see. The nice thing about this is you can actually control where it goes pretty well. Oh, I remember what I was going to do. I was going to highlight those a little bit more. Okay. And there's a few places I'm going to want to clean that up, but that's normal. Of course, it's just sitting there, so it has to dry. It's not like I just brushed it on there. I'll put away this ink before I spill it. And add some of those highlights. Come on. Can't get the lid on this jar. There we go. All right, we're gonna take a brush and come in with these little highlights because I need them to have a little more line weight than the Posca. Okay. I can do this without smearing all that fresh ink. I don't know if I can. There we go. That's all, but it helps. Weird angle. Hope that worked out. Close this one. Don't leave your inks just sitting open, especially your white. White dries super fast. Okay, so what am I working on now? There's a few places I want to clean up, but you know what? I gotta just let that dry. It's good and textural now. Actually, let me add some more textures to the back of the neck there, because I feel like that would take a lot of damage too. Over here where my hand won't drag in anything, and it just dragged in white. That doesn't matter. Nibdeen asks, you're full of questions today. This is awesome. Are you duty bound to ensure everything is hand-drawn and created, or do you ever make adjustments when you scan the final artwork? Yes, I do. Every now and then. I don't usually, that's a great question, by the way. I don't usually do that in inks. If I do that in inks, I do feel pretty gross about it. But I very often make edits to the pencils before printing them out in Blue Line. Just because there's plenty of things that sneak by. I'll do things like, I'll leave myself lots of notes on my original pages. Just things that say, like shrink this head or enlarge this hand or move this eye up a little bit. Little things like that. When you're actually working on a comics page, so much is happening at once. A good time saver is appreciated. A lot of my income is original art sales, so I try to not do that in inks, basically. I try to have the inks as accurate to the final version of themselves as possible, so that the client is actually getting what they pay for. Let's sharpen that up. Okay, it's actually looking pretty good. I want to clean up the white on this side because it got a little saturated. The black I drew it over may have been a tad. Oh, I just dropped a nib. I sounded so enthusiastic about that. May have been a tad wet when I put it there. So I'm going to try this smaller tool. These also work well. This is a Singo Uniball. Those work well for white. All your whiteness needs as well. Except on live stream, apparently. But yeah, that is a good question, and I'm pretty sure at this point, I was never sure if that was like a normal thing to do, but I've seen some more pages of more significant professionals than I, definitely, and they have also done similar things. I've seen the notes in their page that say the same type of things, like, make the eye bigger or move it around. So I feel validated in that. I still want to bulk up this line right here just a little bit on these scales. This whole section could have a little bit more significance. Kind of give it a chance to be more expressive. Look at that. You see the difference that makes, guys? Line weight is everything. Its range of expression just got so much bigger. I love it. Hello, Hitty, just joined. Welcome. Good to see you. Hope you guys are doing okay. Wheeler says, is there a new comic from you coming our way for sale? Nothing quite yet. I'm definitely working on it. COVID's been a little rough on comics, just like everything else. I've got a couple irons in the fire right now. I am definitely doing my best to get something coming to you guys. That's probably the most I can say. Sorry. Now I'm just looking for things to tweak. Let's slice through those, and those will be nice. Yeah, we're approaching the finish line on this one. be a little edge of highlight along the bottom of the scale where it catches the most light. Doesn't really show now, unfortunately. That ink was too wet. Okay, so this is dry enough. I think I can fix some of these that are too much. Or just in like awkward places. That happens too. It's a little much. Oops. It got black on it. That only makes it worse. Okay, I think this guy's looking pretty good. Actually, I want to bump up this containment just a little bit. I'm just going to break back into the white ink, since that's what I have right now. There's any number of ways to do this. Depends on the type of control you need. Let's bulk that up. There, pops forward a little bit. How do you avoid smudging artwork with your skin? Just kind of be careful, honestly. Just be aware of where you put something down and if it's, if there's any chance it's still wet. Fortunately, most of these tools dry very quickly, so it's not a huge issue. Back when I worked with just brush work dries basically instantly, unless you're making like, a puddle of ink. There's really nothing to worry about with that. Some of these tools dry slightly more slowly, but they're still pretty reliable. You see some slight smudging from a tool like this, or rather a tool like the two-headed brush pen that I use primarily. But even that doesn't last till the final stage. So it treats out when you go digital with it for the final version. So you really only see it on the original. I don't want to take this one out. Sometimes you'll have spatter land in like really awkward places, like in the eye and stuff, and it's like, well, it just plain wouldn't be there. So you can take it out. Or if it's distracting from the expression or something. Is your desk parallel to the ground or at an angle? My desk is almost, in fact, here, you know what? I am basically done with the stream. So let me take a step back and show you my setup here. My desk is at a pretty extreme angle, and it is also a standing desk. So you could sort of see that I have it way up off the ground so I can stand and work. But yeah, a drafting table you usually have at an inclined angle, because what happens is you want to be looking at your work straight on so that you don't create false perspective, because if you look at it like this, obviously that changes everything. So you want to sort of be at an angle where you can keep it flat to your eyes. Where's the window with the loud motorcycles? Right there. You've seen it here, folks. All right, I'm going to end the stream before I start showing you all everything. That's a fan. I have a fan in here that I've never used. All right. Well, thank you all for stopping by. This one was actually really fun. And I will see you all next time. So until next Monday, everybody take care.